Spencer and I have been
Sorry.
Spencer and I have been talking about land acknowledgement, and in the chat, I just put the document that I'm going to read from, and I'll hold it up and let's see if everybody can see it. This was a publication from University of Portland involving Indigenous communities. And we just wanted to kick off with this because we know that one way to show solidarity with our Indigenous folks here in the Portland metro area is to actually learn. So I invite everybody to read this. If you have time, it's just a few pages, but it also has a wonderful list of contributing organizations, which are all supported and for Indigenous people. So it starts this way. Portland's Native community is diverse, vibrant, and growing. It has grown by nearly 16% in the last 10 years, and that was based on census data in 2010. The Portland region population's growth and is nearly 70 growth, and the Native population is nearly 70,000 strong. We live here and we thrive here. We are numerous. The Portland urban Native community is descended from over 380 tribes, and many of us are multi-tribal and multi-ethnic. We represent varying degrees of tribal affiliation. Some of us are tribally enrolled and some of us are not, but we all have ancestral ties to our tribes. Some of us are enrolled citizens of local tribes with reserved treaty rights to fish and gather in the Columbia and Willamette rivers, but many of us are citizens or descendants of more geographically distant tribes. We come to the city for as many reasons as there are clans and people, and our stories are powerful.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
This is the land acknowledgement that continues to be a work in progress. The Portland metro area, including Beaverton, rests on traditional village sites of the Kalapuya, Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River and its tributaries. We recognize the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous Native American families today. We thank these tribes for being the stewards and protectors of these lands for thousands and thousands of years. And I'll close just by saying that we would very much like this to become a project of the commission. And so I hope that going forward, we can take turns reading our land acknowledgement. And as it changes over time, continue to do this. Thanks.
Thank you for the work that both of you have contributed. Joy? Shall we
Yes,
do the
dear.
minutes?
Great. Did everyone get a copy of last month's minutes from our meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not seeing any. All right. So did anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, they stand approved as sent.
Thank you. We are on a roll. Paula?
Excuse me. So for this public comment, I don't see anybody in the attendees list, but we do have Chase Landry here with us. Chase works in our community development department here at the city. And Chase had some you know what, Chase? I'm not going to talk about it. I'll let you go ahead and take it away. But I know prior to this too, Joy and Chase had met and there's like, oh my gosh, you should come speak to HRAC. And so Chase, what you got going on?
Hi, thank you all. Can you hear me? Fantastic. Got a call in on my phone too. It's all fancy. I am coming here today, first and foremost, because Joy invited me. Thank you, Joy. I had a chance to talk with Joy at our farmers market about our downtown parking management and action plan. And basically what we got going on right now is we have a project where we're reaching out to the community to talk about how we can improve parking in the downtown area. It's very broad. There are a lot of topics covered within that I probably can't cover in 3 minutes, but we wanted to come to you all, and we're going to several other groups and creating focus groups as well, to ask a couple of simple questions with broad implications. So I'm going to share those in the chat here. I think Paolo mentioned he might be able to email them out to you as well. And they are: 1, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about parking in downtown Beaverton? And 2, what Beaverton parking topics or issues are particularly important to your group? And I wanted to zoom in on 2 here, especially considering the important work that you all do. Please, if you have an opportunity, share with us, email us. I believe many of you already took our survey. Thank you. But share with us your unique experiences, the voices you bring, the history you bring, so that we can understand your perspectives and the perspectives related to the work that you do as we are putting our plan together. And then hopefully we'll be back out to you all in October or a future month meeting to then share with you some of the proposed solutions. Not quite what we're going with yet, but we want to come back with the draft recommendations so that we can get input on those before we run with something that folks in the community haven't actually had a chance to input on and to inform us about. Is that about my time, Paolo, or got a little bit more?
You have 15 seconds.
Fantastic. Really thank you for a little bit of time today, and I'm really looking forward to the chance to come back with our consultants and our parking team in the future to have a more in-depth discussion.
Thank you so much, Chase. Does anybody have questions for Chase? Looks like Spencer.
Just very briefly, Chase, thanks for being here. Is there a particular problem that you're trying to solve?
No, this is basically routine maintenance and planning for the future. So we are trying to improve overall. I would say if there's a problem we're trying to solve, it's that we're growing, and that's a problem and an opportunity, because we need to figure out how to do with the spaces we have, with the parking technology and the parking plans and programs that we have going on as more people are coming here, so that it can work for more people. And as we're sharing for more uses, like we have the parking in the street or the dining in the street going on, First Street Dining Commons and other things right now. And so as we come back from the pandemic, we're seeing more and more folks are driving and coming back in downtown again. So we're having to figure out what we can do in the future and in the long run to make sure the system works.
Kathy?
Yeah. How are you adapting for the long run with fewer gasoline cars, maybe shuttles between the mall and the downtown? Parking, if you do put in parking spaces, more electric hookups and solar to power the. What are you doing about that? I just hear about regular gas vehicle parking.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. We are looking at the whole system holistically. We are acknowledging that right now, a lot of folks drive and a lot of folks drive by themselves, but that in the future, that's not going to be the case. So how do we both encourage sustainable behavior while studying and understanding what the current needs are? So one of the things that we got going on, there's a new garage coming in by the Beaverton building and the Patricia Research Center for the Arts, and it has several EV spaces in it that are going to be available for public use. Let's see, long-term future, the shuttles and things like that. Our consultant team, they work across the country, and so they're bringing in and talking about ideas like that. What sort of shuttles and things. I can't promise anything yet. We're looking at all the options right now, but we really want it to be informed by what's going on and where things are going, and hearing from folks. So we've heard from businesses that are saying, yeah, let's do a shuttle loop. We've heard from other people that were saying, what does micromodal look like? You know, you come downtown, you drop off your car, you park somewhere, someone take a small, maybe an EV vehicle to take us from wherever a garage might be to where I want to eat to my next spot, and be circling around, maybe with capabilities to pick up people who use wheelchairs as well. And so we're hearing a lot of those topics right now, and this is the time to share those ideas if you have them, and to send them to us.
Thank you, Chase, and thank you for being so proactive. It's great that we're addressing this now before the growth is so uncontrollable that we really have huge problems that can't be resolved. I'm glad we're working on building a system as we evolve.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we really want to incorporate all voices, people who live here, people who visit here, businesses, their needs are, people who use bikes, people who use wheelchairs, all the above.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paolo, shall we move on to liaisons?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So thanks so much, Chase. Of course, you are more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but do not feel obligated. And it looks like you left an email address too where people could send their answers to those questions. But if people do have questions, they can send them to me. Or like I said, everybody at the city is first letter of the first name, last name at beavertonoregon.gov. So C Landry, beavertonoregon.gov. So we could go ahead and jump into liaison updates. And as you all probably have noticed, I didn't actually send you liaison updates this time around since I was out of town. So I'm sorry about that, but we could go ahead and do that now. And I'll turn it over first to, how about Councilor Hasan? As you're drinking water or something.
Yeah, hi, hello everyone. Given it sounds like there's a packed agenda, I'll try to be quick. We have our new city manager starting August 23rd, so really excited about that. If you listened to last night's meeting, there is going to be a follow-up conversation on August 24th around the police conversation. Some of the conversations I've been having on the side to try to continue to move this have been more focused around what oversight board or commission looks like. So that's some of the work that I've been doing kind of on my own. And I'm just going to drop some links for you all, but we had a really neat meeting last Tuesday with a planning commission and city councilor where we talked about housing options in Beaverton, because we know we have a housing shortage and we need to start talking about what we're going to build in Beaverton. We also talked about updating our shelter code to eventually potentially figure out what shelter looks like for our community. And then we also had a bureau meeting, and I find myself still figuring out how to navigate all the meetings and know. And when I feel like I don't understand, I imagine that community members don't understand. So typically the last Tuesday of every month, we have a bureau meeting. And if you don't know what bureau is, it's the Beaverton Urban Redevelopment. Hold up. See, not everybody's perfect. The Beaverton
Urban Renewal
Redevelopment Agency. See, I renewal, but it is a redevelopment agency, and it's all around downtown Beaverton and what equity work, what work we can do. And one of the topics that we had was around what is equity and what does our downtown equity strategy look like. So I will pause and ask and answer questions, but I'm going to drop a couple links in the chat so that you can all reference any of these things for your knowledge.
Thank you. Wow, that's we're really grateful that you've been having those conversations on the side so that we can be proactive, as you know, that we were a part of recommending a commission for our police oversight and a place that that was independent for overview.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councilor Hasan? Okay, we'll go ahead and get moving. I'm going to turn it over to our police folks. I know we have Consuelo Star with us here today. Hello, Consuelo. It's good seeing you.
Hello.
Captain Wendell, I want to say Lieutenant Stellingwerf, or Neil, he let me say Lieutenant Stellingwerf for a whole year before he said, just call me Neil, would you? So is it Paul or is it
Yep, no, Paul's fine. I'll follow Neil's lead. I'm good with Paul. That works.
Very good, very good. I should just ask. And it's on record now, so we all know.
There you go.
Cool.
Real quick, I'm mainly going to have Consuelo talk and kind of brief you on a program she's been working on. So I'm going to give her most of the time. But briefly, you'll have a new captain that start next month. I'm retiring September 1st. So it's kind of a quick decision, but so we're in transition right now. So I kind of throw that out there. Like if anybody has any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns in the next coming weeks, feel free to call me or email me. So I'll be transitioning with the new captain, making sure that he's on board with everything that's been going on. So everything's kind of seamless. So I don't know who that person will be yet. They're still doing interviews. So introductions will be made next month. So with that, I'll turn it over to Consuelo to kind of brief you on a program she's got going on.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I've met people before that have been in this group, and I get to meet new people, so I really enjoy that. So my position with the Beaverton Police Department is I'm a community outreach coordinator and facilitator, and I have been with the agency for 16 years. And out of those 16 years, 10 years have been doing community outreach. And we're really unique in Beaverton that we're one of the few agencies in the county that have this position in a two-part. We have one uniformed sworn officer that does community outreach, and then we also have one that is a non-uniformed sworn officer, just me, so that we can play different roles in reaching out to community and diverse communities who maybe wouldn't feel as comfortable with somebody in uniform. Maybe I could go out and speak to communities about education, resources, and questions that they may have and provide education. Along with that is finding out how can I come together within the communities and being neutral ground, finding neutral places where we can come together and do events. Some of those events that we do are like Shop with a Cop and National Night Out, Coffee with a Cop. We also do a lot of resourcing with some of the nonprofits in our area and faith leadership communities as well. And we also try to find a time where we can have the chief and our administration go out as well to make that connection. So maybe I may make the initial connection, but seeing how comfortable maybe those communities would feel if, can I invite maybe the patrol sergeant for your neighborhood? Would you feel comfortable with him coming over to maybe speak to your neighborhood? I've even brought, can I bring the chief? She would like to come. Is that something that you're ready to have as a guest at whatever meeting we may be having or event? And just kind of working kind of those comfort levels. And if there is concerns or fears, let's talk about those with pertaining within Beaverton, and where can we start having conversation. So I like to talk, and that's why I do really well in this position. One of the newest projects that I'm working on is, I'm looking at my notes here, is that we in the past, a couple of years ago, started the Latino parent group. And it was based out of Sunset High School, where we would have various groups come together in different languages. And I facilitated the Latino parent group because I am a bilingual speaker, native to the language, and be able to start with what are some of the things that right now are subject matters that maybe you have concerns about. Is it immigration? Is it your child's continually runaway child from the home? Is it cyberbullying? Is it internet? What are those things are? And then I take that information, I go back to the agency, I start handpicking who would be good at getting that education and resource in the appropriate language set for this parent group. Well, when COVID happened and schools closed down, I didn't want to lose that connection with the Latino parent group, because what has turned into now is that they see me being that bridge of connection and resource. And so they call me for everything now. They tell a friend and they tell a friend. And so what I've become is like, okay, you're new to this meeting. All you need to remember is now you know somebody at the police department. You know me. Call me. Let's work through some of the concerns you have. And I felt like with COVID and the schools closed because of COVID, that how could I reconnect with that? So in speaking with Latino parent groups, we started creating videos. Well, the first video we created was some of the questions I had about our public safety building, because it's in a very diverse neighborhood. You know, it's big. What is it? Why isn't it called the Beaverton Police Department? Why is it called a public safety center? What services do you provide there? So I started hearing those things. So we went out and I got with the marketing team and we created this video that walks you through the police department and answers the questions that they had, not questions that we picked out, questions that they picked out, and sent the video out to the Latino parent group. And so now they're excited about possibly doing some more on different actual subject matters over videos. Because a lot of them, you know, we could, you know, try to do Zooms, we could try to do meetings, but unfortunately, not everybody has a computer that they can get on. They don't have access to internet. This is something they could get on, we put it on, we put the video out on YouTube so they could watch it on their phones and have a link. And it was just, it seemed like it worked better than us trying to gather people in an actual set time. And so the video has been very successful. And if anybody would like to see it, just reach out to me and I can send it to you. It was a little bit too long, I think, to bring to the meeting. It's about a 5 to 7 minute video, but it walks through all the questions that they had. So still trying to keep communicating, but we have to learn how to do it different now because of the situation and the climate we're in. So those are some of the things that we do in the community outreach division. The division was created about 11 years ago, and it's just done so many different things. One of my favorite community division things that we've done is I remember working in like our different areas of the police department. I've had 3 different positions there. That, you know, finding the need for food for families in need in the middle of the night. Well, all of these places are closed to get food. So I started a small pantry in my garage, and then it ended up getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I moved eventually the Star Pantry into the police department. Now that Star Pantry serves an internal customer. Our police officers and our court systems can come and get food for families and take it out, no questions asked. And so it's grown, and we're using it in so many different capacities. So those are little things that maybe we don't always share with the community, but we know what we're doing is to find ways to serve where the need is. And the only way we're going to find out what that is to go out and ask. And that's just getting out there and going to talk to people and never staying silent. So I've covered just a few points. If you would like to have coffee with me, if you'd like to come see the Star Pantry and see the building, I also do tours of the new building in small groups. I will put my information in the chat. So it's cstar@beavertonoregon.gov. I also put my contact information and desk number so you guys can reach out to me, and thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Consuelo.
I'm going to say it in Spanish too.
What's that?
You want to say all I just said in Spanish?
maybe for the next meeting. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for opening yourself up to us too. I'm going to turn it over to Amy. Amy, how's MEF doing this summer? And
I think Spencer has a question, and I also had a question also. Spencer, go ahead.
Thank you.
Me too.
I guess this would be for Paul. And my questions have to do with bills that came out of the legislature that's just ended at the beginning of last month, that impact law enforcement operations. You no doubt know that HRAC issued report last year for city council, or beginning of this year for city council, that we had entered into dialogue and did some research, and it's about police operations in Beaverton. So there are a number of bills that came out that that intersect with our recommendations. For example, HB 2162 about police training and accreditation. Can you speak to that? Was, by the way, to be effective 91 days after session close. So do you know if that's being acted upon? What the status is there?
On that specific one, Spencer, no. But what I will say in the broader sense is that when the changes came out through the legislature, that and everything just got finalized, the deputy chief just made a summary of all the legislative bills that impacted law enforcement. And then Greg Brown from the assistant city attorney that you met, I think, last meeting or the meeting prior, I'm getting a little turned around time frame, reviewed that to make sure that we are current. So as far as I know, in a broad sense, we are current on everything that came out of the legislature. Either we were already doing it, or it really didn't have an impact for us, or that we are in the process of making the change. So on a specific one, Spencer, I'd have to get back in touch with you and review that. I don't mentally have them all memorized tonight, so I couldn't give you a straight answer on that.
Okay, thank you. There are several that are already in force that went into effect either 7/1 or upon the governor's signature. One of them, for example, is HB 2575, which addresses trauma-informed training, and that is in direct intersection with part of our report. And there's money involved, so the legislature thinks it's going to cost $1 million. Is this something that we have to that the BPD has to apply for? It's already, in force. So do you know anything about that? You're muted.
Hang on, I hit the wrong button. Sorry, Spencer.
That's okay.
Yeah, anything with the cost related to training, I think we're going to be okay with. And Councilor Hasan might be able to answer that too. Is obviously with the budget year we just entered into, we have a reduced training budget, but I think we'll be okay in meeting any needs that are required, especially by the legislature. So without looking at maybe the dollar amount of what the training is required, I think we're going to be fine. Hopefully that answered your question. I can get back to you on that one, Spencer.
Okay.
And I can hop in just to let y'all know. I did talk with the chief 2 weeks ago to understand the questions that y'all had around these policies have passed at the state level. What does it look like? And it's my understanding that anything that is being passed at the state level is 100% being looked at by staff within the city to ensure that we are compliant. We wouldn't not do that. I did ask the chief to make sure she shared that at some point. So I'll circle back with her, just make sure that we get some sort of update, because I think that it is important y'all know that is happening.
Yeah, I think you also want to make sure to be aware that we're trying to keep as quickly adapt to the legislative changes as possible. So what we're doing is we had the deputy chief do the review, the city attorney's office do a review, and then we're working with Lexipol to make those policy changes. But we didn't want to wait till Lexipol came out and made the policy changes as they evaluate them. So we went proactive and made sure that we're current. So we put out a directive to make sure that prior to policy changes, written policy changes, that we are doing what's required to do, and then we'll formalize it policy once we hear back from Lexipol, which shouldn't be that long.
Okay. There are any number, there are several more that are already in force, and maybe we should follow up with Chief Groshong about those, or with Neil next time he's here.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And I think, if you want to put it on the agenda for next month, that'd be great. I mean, we could provide a condensed summary of the changes that came through the legislature, what we're already doing, what we are temporarily made changes to, so we're in compliance, and we could give you a better update.
Okay.
But if we maybe slot some time, it's kind of hard when I just do that, the quick liaison report. I hate to take too much time, but if Paula can put some time in for us, that'd be great.
I guess I'll leave it there then. Thank you.
No,
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Spencer.
Mercy, I know you also had a comment or question. You're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the last speaker. How do you prefer to be called? Star or I can't pronounce your first name. Is that Consuela?
It's Consuelo.
Consuelo. So forgive me if I can't pronounce it correctly. So thank you for the great job that you do. I just wondering how often do you update your nonprofit organization that you try to partner with?
Oh, I'm always trying. It's like over the last 10 years, it's all the time.
Let's just say over the last 1 year, how often do you update your nonprofit organization to be able to connect with other nonprofit organizations that were established in the last year or two to make them part of what you're doing?
I would say I'm part of a lot of different like Washington County co-ops where we get information and invites to go to new organizations' open houses. And, you know, I'm trying to make an effort to at least make sure we try to get to know all these new organizations coming in, what can we do to partner? So I would say this last year with COVID, there hasn't been as many open houses. We've done a lot of online stuff if they're available. So I would say probably a little bit lesser during COVID, but as soon as things open up and organizations invite us to their open houses and locations, I'm there. I enjoy meeting some of the services that come into our community and welcome them.
Thank you. I got your contact information.
Great.
Thank you so much, Consuela, for your work and in the community and your work within the police department. Really, I'm so grateful. I won't keep your time going too much anymore just because we're running out of it. But I was curious about how the pantry is stocked. Is that with a partnership with a nonprofit, or how are you doing that?
It is a beautiful thing. It is all community. So over the years, I've just talking to people, like we've been doing tours and people will see the Star Pantry and we have a specific list of things that we stock in there. It's the list pertains to, we sat down and figured out if a family needed to feed somebody for breakfast, what could they eat? So we kind of got a very specific list. And that list is at the police department when you go visit the pantry. And so we have volunteers that are Beaverton police volunteers, city volunteers, people who have just taken a tour, random people, or they've heard the story about the Star Pantry. And we have a couple of dental offices and like small businesses that have reached out to me and maybe Shop with the Cop or Coffee with the Cop, or they've seen me at one of these meetings and they say, what can my small business do to help? I'm like, well, here's the list. I'll email you the list. And the next thing I know is, I've got, 15 boxes of cereal and, and I invite them like, well, let's go and put it on the shelf and come on in. So they see how it goes, where it goes and everything. It's expanded to in our victim advocacy program where victim advocates can go out there and they're talking about maybe doing one at the courts now because people who come to pay their tickets, maybe that's the last money they had. They just want to make sure the record's clear, but that was their grocery money or something of the sort, or they were helping out a mom or a parent. So they'll come in and grab 2 bags. I'm like, I'm just going to give these out. Do you mind? Yes, please. So it's really the community helping the community. And we are not sponsored by anybody. It's totally run by the community.
Wow, thank you, Consuela, and thank you, Paul, for joining us today. Really, I'm really deeply grateful for that work that you're doing, and the pantry is particularly inspiring the community outreach.
Well, we welcome you to come over and see it.
Actually, I'm looking forward to that. I think I will. I think I'll come and get a tour.
Send me an email.
Thank you, Councilor. Really appreciate you being here. Amy, I apologize for delaying your time.
No worries at all. Yeah, I don't have much to talk about. Right now, MEAB is actually on break, so we're going to resume or start our year actually next month. So currently, I'm just working with the other co-chair to begin planning our year. We're going to have an officers meeting soon. So really, we're just in the planning stages. We're going to be welcoming our new board members next month. So yeah, not much to report.
Thank you so much. Paolo, I think I'm stepping on your toes here.
All good. It's all good. I'm actually going to go ahead and default my time since we do have a packed agenda and we're pretty behind right now. And I'll go ahead and email you all out the rest of the liaison updates. So I think we could go ahead and turn it to the next piece here. I'm happy to introduce Kevin Barton. Kevin, thank you so much for being here today. Kevin is a prosecutor with the Washington County District Attorney's Office. That is a mouthful, my gosh. I believe it was Stephen or Stefan. I always get confused with that one.
It's Stephen.
Stephen, okay. Well, Stephen, if you're back there, thank you for reaching out.
Hi, Des. Thank you. Dealing with some young kids here in the background, so on mute tonight, but thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Stephen, and young kids in the background. For reaching out and offering to come speak to HRAC. I talked to the chairs about it. They said, yes, absolutely, we want them here. And they sent over a long list of things and discussions that topics that we could discuss. And I went straight for the general overview. They do a lot of great stuff. And so we're going to go for the general overview of what their office does. And I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin.
Great. Thank you, Pablo. And just to check, can you all hear me? Someone wave at me. Okay, I see nodding heads. Thank you. Let me ask you this before we get started. How much time would you like me to take? I want to be sensitive to your agenda.
We had talked about 15 minutes. I'm wondering if we can do it in 10?
I'll do whatever you like. So that sounds good. Let me start with just a few words about me. And then I did have a PowerPoint slide that, you know what, I think I'll just show you a few slides on there, but I want to reserve a big chunk of time for questions because my guess is this group might have some questions. So I am the district attorney for Washington County. That's an elected position. Every county in Oregon has an elected DA, just like every county has an elected sheriff. And so that's who I am. The role of our office is essentially we prosecute crimes that happen in Washington County. And actually the interesting thing for Beaverton is for Beaverton and Beaverton only, we don't prosecute many of the misdemeanor crimes that occur in Beaverton. That's what your city attorney's office does in your Beaverton Municipal Court. So that's a little bit different for Beaverton, but generally speaking, my office would handle the crimes that occur in Washington County. I live in Washington County. I live in Sherwood, so a couple cities away from all of you. If I'm not at work on the weekends, you'd find me watching my kids play soccer. I've got 3 kids. We're going to local schools. And, you know, I'm basically, as a resident of Washington County, that's one of the reasons I decided I wanted to become the DA. I'd worked for years as a career prosecutor, but when the position became available to run for the office, I just feel really strongly that this is an important position to keep our community safe and to help people out. That's what drew me to it. So I'd like to just show you a few slides, and then maybe Pablo, you can, when we're getting to about halfway, maybe you can just interrupt me so I can break away and answer questions. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share anything you'd like.
Thanks a lot. All right, I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm just going to bring up this PowerPoint. So really my goal for showing you these slides is I just want this to spur a conversation. Shoot, let's see if I can make this work. Hang on a sec. So slideshow from the beginning. I want to just spur a conversation here. So our office mission is seeking justice and protecting our community. What that means is every decision we make is with those 2 guideposts in mind. You know, is it the right thing to do? That's the seeking justice part. Are we doing the right thing for the right reason? And then protecting our community. The DA, essentially, one of the key roles of DA is keeping the community safe. And I always tell people that's not just being safe, but it's feeling safe. That means when you walk down the street, do you feel safe? When you come to the courthouse, do you feel safe? despite whatever your immigration status might be, we provide services for everybody without regard to any of those issues. When you drop your kids off at school, do you feel safe? Do you feel like they're safe? That's really our role in the DA's office. This is where we're located. That's the courthouse. It's a recent picture taken during Child Abuse Awareness Month. What you can see on the lawn in front are some pinwheels to honor that month, but that's the Washington County Courthouse in Hillsborough. My wife was there this morning at 7 a.m. for jury duty, and she did not get picked. Just if anyone's wondering, but she was there for jury duty. This is our website, just a screenshot of it, and maybe Stephen can put in the chat a link. We try and put really everything about what we do on the internet for people to see. That's our entire policy manual is there for anyone to look at. All the cases we handle are there. All the specialty courts that we operate are there. It's just a wealth of information. I'm going to skip over this slide because we're limited on time. It talks about what the duties of the DA are. I'm going to kind of skip over a few here. These are the different police agencies that we work with in Washington County. There's about a dozen of them. Beaverton is one of about a dozen that we work with. We serve the entire county. And here's a good snapshot of our office. So on the overall, what's at the DA's office, I think numbers can sometimes help tell the story. So we've got about 130 or so employees. We're the second largest office in the state, which makes sense because Washington County is the second most populous county in the state. Roughly every year, we serve about 12,500 crime victims. We receive for review about 12,000 criminal cases every year. We don't file charges in every case that we receive. In fact, we do quite a bit of triage. The standard for us when we file charges is the evidence has to be there to allow us to prove a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what you hear about on TV, the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And that's not always there. And so we only proceed forward on roughly 9,000 cases every year. So there's a whittling or a narrowing process. And then the part that you see on TV when you watch TV shows about justice and the court system, the trials, roughly about 300 of those cases or so every year is what we process. So about 3% of the cases that we file actually go to trial. The vast majority resolve through what's called a plea deal or a guilty plea or a plea negotiation. We're not usually involved in money, but sometimes we do help victims of crimes get money or collect money. That's called restitution. So if your house is broken into and there's some damage, the person who committed that crime will be ordered to pay you back as a crime victim. And then also something that we do that has really nothing to do with criminal system is child support enforcement. We help parents who are owed child support by another parent, we help collect that money. And the reason we do that, aside from the fact that the law says the DA's, it's one of our responsibilities, but it actually, in my opinion, it really helps build these solid foundations for kids who are growing up in our community so we can make sure they've got a roof over their head, food on the table. So that's, in a very broad sense, a snapshot of what we do. I'm going to skip over, just because we're so pressed on time. This slide really just shows the different divisions and units we have in our office. And if we had more time, I'd be happy to dive into this, but I do want to tell you about a few things that we're up to. So in fact, I'm just going to zoom out of here and skip down to a couple PowerPoint slides. So there's three really big projects that we're working on right now. The first one is this one, and it's called the Family Peace Center. And essentially, what we're trying to do is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept called ACEs. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And essentially, the ACEs medical studies, which started in the 1990s, they established what I think for many might be common sense. And that is the more negative or traumatic events that happen to people, especially kids when they're younger, the higher the likelihood that down the road, those kids, when they become adults, are going to struggle with things like mental health issues, addiction issues, joblessness, homelessness, even some physical difficulties and criminal behavior. And so all the science really points to, again, a common sense conclusion. The more you can do when they're younger, the better things will turn out when they're older. And so with that in mind, we have this community effort to establish what's called the Washington County Family Peace Center, where we're trying to bring a child abuse medical clinic called CARES Northwest. It's part of Legacy Hospital. the Washington County Family Justice Center, which is a domestic violence center, and the Domestic Violence Resource Center, also a domestic violence center, and put them all together in one spot so that families that are struggling with child abuse, child neglect, or domestic abuse or domestic violence have one place to go where they can get trauma therapy, see a doctor, maybe get a restraining order, find a safe place to live. That's one of the big projects that we're working on. I consider that a form of criminal justice reform because I believe that type of initiative that will create generational change. You do this now for kids and young adults, down the road we'll reap the benefits. The other thing I wanted to share with you is an event that we have every year that I thought you might be interested in, and perhaps some of you have heard of this event. It's called Building Bridges of Understanding. This started about 5 years ago in 2016. And really what we try and do, the mission statement is there on the screen in front of you, but we bring together people that might not otherwise normally be talking. And now because of this event, we are and have been for several years now. In fact, I just had a lunch yesterday over at the Muslim Educational Trust, which is over in Tigard off of Shoals Ferry, if you don't know where that is. And we talk about issues that might be controversial, but we find ways to address them. Things like defund the police or reallocating funds or how to deal with mental health in the criminal system. A lot of the topics I would imagine that you've been wrestling with yourself. And you can see on the screen in front of you is a screenshot from our most recent large event, which unfortunately had to be virtual. But we've got people like Marcus Monday from Coalition of Communities of Color and Ikenge Harmon Johnson from the Urban League, Jawad Khan from the Muslim Educational Trust. So I thought you might be interested in hearing about that. We'll have an event coming up this October, and I'm happy to share it, Pablo, with you so you can tell the members. And then finally, before I stop talking and take some questions, I wanted to tell you about something I'm proud of that we were able to do for the first time during COVID last year. We led an effort to establish a new career fair. So when I took over as DA, one of the challenges that I recognized is our employees in the DA's office, our prosecutors and our non-prosecutors. I thought we could do better when it comes to making sure that they represent the diverse community that we're serving. And we tried different ways to do that when it comes to hiring, and we actually kind of struck out. It was really difficult. It wasn't for a lack of a desire, but we just couldn't find, frankly, a way to recruit and retain the people that we were hoping to recruit and retain. Oregon had up until this year, no diversity fair for lawyers or for legal professionals. So we thought, well, if one doesn't exist, we ought to just make one. And that's really what we did. So reached out to a number of partners on both the private and the public side and established this first annual diversity legal job fair. It's now going to be an annual event. We just talked about our second annual one in a meeting I had earlier this week, but it was a pretty good success. We had 130 plus people show up virtually, not just from Oregon, from outside of Oregon as well. We had just under 50, we had 49 employers who are Oregon legal employers, law firms, DA's offices, nonprofits, companies who want to hire people, hire lawyers or legal support, so non-lawyers as well. And we had 81 of these booths, these virtual booths where we could do hiring. And the initial feedback has been just positive. We've had a number of people who are confirmed hires as a result of that. So those are just three big projects that we're doing on top of the day-to-day 12,000 cases every year type work that I kind of summarized. And Pablo, how am I doing here on time now?
Actually just messaged you, so perfect. I think this would be a great time to take questions if you can.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do that. Here we go, stop share. I'm sorry it was so fast and so broad. I think I might be coming back in front of you all a month or two, but I see some hands. So Pablo, why don't you be the moderator and you can tell me who I should answer.
Absolutely. By the way, it's Paulo, so like Pablo, but without the B.
I'm sorry. It's the end of the day and I couldn't see that small print on my screen.
It's all good. I'll just go by the hands I see first. And so we're going to go in order: Spencer, Kathy, Cameron, and Stephanie. And I'll put that in the chat also.
Hi, thanks for being here. I've lost track of the timing. Maybe it was in 2020, maybe 2019. There was an incident, I believe in Aloha, involving a police officer from Forest Grove who assaulted their neighbor's house, verbally assaulted them. These were people of color, and it was nasty, and it was reported, and for days, maybe a couple of weeks, the victim family could not get any information from either the sheriff's office or your office. And it turned into something, I don't know if it was a scandal exactly, but it was a problem. And I think the case is resolved now, so perhaps you'll feel free to talk about it a little bit. And mostly I'm interested in what your office has done to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. So I'm very familiar with that case. It was in Forest Grove. It involved an off-duty police officer. I think it was Halloween night. And the home that he ended up attacking was a home that was flying a Black Lives Matters flag. That case is still pending. It's set for trial in December. We have filed charges in that case. And then there's actually some related charges against another police officer from Forest Grove who responded and engaged in, I think the charge we filed was called official misconduct. There is a rule, so I'm happy to answer, I can answer any question. However, there is a rule that applies to all lawyers that says if there's a pending case, I can't talk about the facts of a pending case until it's been resolved. But I can kind of get around the edges of what you're asking about. In terms of the timing of information to the victim in that case, the best analogy I can give you all in terms of how the system typically works is think of a relay race where you've got the first leg of the relay is run by the law enforcement, so the police. When 911 is called or when they see a crime happening, they do that first leg. They take witness statements, they gather evidence, they see what's around them. And then typically the second leg will be to the DA's office. They'll pass that on to us, and then we will be able to either make a decision to go forward or not go forward. Sometimes there's some crossover where we might work with them as they're doing that first leg to help them as they're maybe making some decisions about what evidence is important and what's not. But really that's entirely their responsibility when it comes to getting that information to us. A significant portion of the delay that you're talking about really happened before our office was involved. So I can't speak to that part of it. I can say that when we got involved, we had multiple in-person communications with the victim in that house of that incident. I've been working very closely with her, and she has an attorney as well. So I hope I've answered your question.
Thanks.
As best as you're allowed. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, who's next?
Kathy.
Kathy.
Great. Hi, Kathy.
Thank you. Hi, Kevin. I was just wondering, do you provide any oversight or training for police in the towns in Washington County? For example, maybe we're a Human Rights Commission, train them on civil rights, perhaps?
No, that's a great question, Kathy. That is not how our system in Oregon, at least, is set up. So the DA's office is a separate independent office from the police agencies. And all of the training for police officers and all of the oversight on a day-to-day basis is done by the city that is operating the police department and by the governing training agency, the Department of Public Safety and Standards. The only time the DA's office is involved when it comes to oversight would be, for example, if a case were to come to us where we see something that is illegal or improper, such as an improper use of force or an illegal act by a police officer, we would of course do something about that. We would act on our own. Also, there are times when there is an officer involved use of deadly or lethal force, sometimes called an officer involved shooting. And when those incidents happen, the procedure in Washington County is that the district attorney's office, in coordination with what's called our major crimes team, which is a countywide team of detectives, we will actually investigate the legality of the officer's use of deadly force. That's not oversight per se, because we don't look at policies and regulations and policy violations, but we do in those situations look at legality and whether a crime was committed.
Thank you.
You bet.
Cameron?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'll start this off. Ms. Barton, are you aware of your office's reputation among defense attorneys?
Well, what reputation or which attorneys are you thinking of?
Criminal defense attorneys specifically.
Well, I've worked in the DA's office now for, boy, 15 plus years. So I've had a lot of interaction with a lot of defense attorneys. And I believe you're an attorney as well, is that right?
That is correct.
I don't think we've had a case together, have we?
We have not. However, I have encountered many of your deputies, and that's
okay.
Where this question is coming from. I'm going to be honest with you. Your office has a reputation as having some of the most hostile deputy DAs out there. I recall I once had a case where one of your deputies refused to dismiss, not for any legal principle, but rather, and he specifically said this to me in the courtroom, on the basis of office politics. How do you see that reputation, how it can be changed, and how it can comport with the respect for human rights that this committee seeks to enshrine into law and practice?
Well, thank you for the comment and the question. It's hard for me to respond to anecdotes because I don't know the circumstances about, surrounding them. And I'd be more than happy to have a more direct conversation with you, Cameron, offline, so you can give me more details and I can look into that. I certainly would not want there to be an impression that, as you said, office politics plays a role in something. So I just don't know more about the example you're speaking of. I can tell you this, I learned a long time ago that if you're chasing a reputation, then you're not acting as a true leader, and you're also not following a principled approach. So I do not make decisions, and we do not have an office that makes decisions based on how a criminal defense attorney might think of us, but instead we serve the community at large, the over 600,000 Washington County residents. So again, I'm happy to answer specific questions about policies if you have one. Happy to talk with you more offline. But I don't worry about what a criminal defense attorney might think. Our system is designed intentionally to be an adversarial system. And I would say this, if criminal defense attorneys and prosecutors were the best of friends and always getting along in the courtroom, then you don't always have that adversarial system that's at play. That's not how our founders set this up, and not what I believe is the mission of the DA's office, which is really to serve the people, not the attorneys. Thank you for the question, though.
Thank you. I appreciate your time in being here, Kevin, and providing us an overview of the office and its duties. You mentioned the CARES program as well as the efforts to make immigrants feel comfortable and be able to access the criminal justice system despite immigration status. I was curious, how does the office send out those messages? How do you reach the populations that message is intended to deliver? Oftentimes we'll have resources, but the intended recipients don't know about them or have access to them.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. I'll tell you this, if I could make myself have a louder mouthpiece or microphone to reach more people, I certainly would. It's a variety of ways that we try and engage in the outreach. One example is what I'm doing right now, going to speak to groups, answering questions. And it's, we reached out to your group because we want to have that dialogue. It wasn't the other way around. So we do a lot of this, and it's not just me, it's people in my office that do the outreach. All the social media channels that the teenagers and the young adults are very familiar with that I'm still struggling to understand. We try and put everything we can on social media and on our website. So we're trying to be as transparent and open as we can in that way. And then, we work in partnership with a lot of agencies, not just police agencies, but nonprofits that operate in Washington County. Those would be, there's a group called Safety Compass, which does outreach for human trafficking survivors. The Domestic Violence Resource Center that I mentioned to you a moment ago, Centro Cultural, Adelante Mujeres, Coalition for Communities of Color, the Muslim Educational Trust, all these groups that we have relationships with so that we can spread the word. But clearly we need to do more. And we're just trying to, as I said, have the loudest mouthpiece we can to engage in that outreach.
Thank you. Again, we really appreciate your time in coming today.
Thank you.
I believe that then, Paolo, I'm sorry, you were going to say.
Oh, no, looks like we have one last question. So let's go ahead and have Councilor Hasan go, and that could be the last one before we move on. Is that cool?
I don't want to take away from another person's question if someone has a question. So I can reserve time with the DA later. So please.
No, please, Councilor Hasan.
Well, so I'm just curious. I know a lot of what I was seeing was around like victims' rights and sort of supporting that. Like, what is rehabilitation? Like, what programs exist to really take, to take the criminal out of to take the criminal out of the person and to treat them as a person?
Yeah, thank you. And I'd be more than happy, by the way, to have a follow-up conversation with you, Councilor, if you like. I believe I'm coming back. Paolo, I am coming back in front of you to talk about our specialty court and treatment programs, I think in October. But we have what I consider to be a very robust number of specialty court and treatment programs in Washington County. And so what those are programs that are designed to address some of the root causes that might be underlying criminal activity. So for example, drug court. What is drug court? Well, we take people who the law would say by virtue of the crime they've been convicted of, they should go to prison. The law actually, the presumptive sentence is a prison sentence. But we don't believe that for some of these people that would solve the root cause of the crime. For many people struggling with addiction, we find that addiction and property crimes sometimes occur, and the root cause of that property crime, that theft or that burglary, might be that addiction. So we put someone in this specialty intensive program where basically they've got to perform. So they have to do their UAs, they have to meet with their counselor, meet with a therapist perhaps if there's underlying issues to address, and then show up in court. And then over the course of time, whether it's a year or 2 years, eventually they'll either graduate, or if they don't graduate, then they'll go to prison. And I go to every one of those graduations, and I can tell you, every one of those graduates without fail will tell you that it saves their lives. It doesn't just save their life, it saves their kids' lives, and you think of the ripple effects of a stone in a pond, how it impacts, each of our lives impacts so many other people. To me, that's the real benefit of these specialty courts. So drug court is one of them. We have about a dozen of those specialty courts geared to different types of people with different issues: a veterans treatment court, a mental health court, a court for parents that are struggling with issues and they've got kids and we want to avoid putting them in foster care. So I could speak for a while about that, but that's our goal.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you so much again, Kevin, for your time today and for the information. We look forward to having you back and speaking more broadly, and we will be better about managing our time. It's
no problem.
We truly work. We're a hard-working group, and we get through a lot of topics, and we really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for the time and the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Thanks again. The next area that we need to discuss is our Title VI proposal. As you may recall, on our last session, Patricia, the HR director from the city of Beaverton, came and spoke to us and requested that we partner with the city in creating a transparent system for Title VI. It's really something that I think is an exciting opportunity for our commission to participate in. There were some concerns that were expressed about our training or our ability to be fully versed in Title VI. And with additional conversations with Patricia, we have come to an understanding that really this is about putting forward transparency so that they can make sure that they are adhering to best practices. I feel personally, as a commissioner, not as the chair, but as a commissioner, I feel really strongly that this would be an opportunity for us to create a lasting partnership. And as I am sitting here in my last few months of time with HRAC, I think a bit about legacy and where this will be going forward, and that as my time is coming to a close, the commission will continue to do amazing work. And in fact, Joy had said to me some wise words last week when I talked with her. She had said that brought me to tears, that we are sowing winter seeds and other hands will harvest. And those wise words really touched my soul. And I think of this as some of those winter seeds that we're sowing, and that connection to the HR department and the ability for them to increase their transparency through this commission, which I'm always amazed by our ability to be not only inclusive in our voices, but diverse in our perspectives and quite demanding in our questions. And it's something that we excel at in this group. And I would encourage us to formalize that partnership. We tabled that discussion, but I would bring that forward and suggest that we accept that offer, and that we would make that connection with HR and take on that, not just the responsibility, but the opportunity to really make a difference with our community and be able to provide a part of, and please remember, it's a part of the Title VI program, that we're a body that can ask additional questions. We're a body that can assist HR in their efforts to be transparent. Any thoughts?
I would say that from last month, there is a motion on the table to consider being accepting the offer from the Title VI program, however it was worded last month. Spencer has it written down. It is so to take it back up. Is there any further discussion?
Kathy, I think you may have had a comment.
Yeah. So I wonder if you could share with us some of the information that was shared with you about training, amount of time that might be required of us, and that sort of thing.
And so, Kathy, I think that was one of the primary concerns, and you rightly had voiced that last time. And so that was the question that we posed to Patricia, and her response to that was that it isn't, she would certainly go over as an HR director what exactly is involved in Title VI. So an overview of the specifics of what is happening in Title VI, but our formalized training would not be required. Similar to the way that we provide additional communication to the police department. We don't have specific training, but what we do have is a community of individuals that ask very probing questions, and that the effort that HR is looking for is it's looking for a body of people to come to provide transparency in their work. And so really the time that would be involved would be as an agenda item on our current schedule and during our meetings, where HR would come present their findings of what they have seen over the year, and then HRAC would be there to provide follow-up as far as questions, provide perhaps probing areas where they may go back and have to provide additional information to us or even to the city. But really the role would be to increase transparency. Lisa?
Yeah, who are the alternatives to us if it's not us?
I don't know.
Sure.
Because that would, I mean, if it's like, you know, I'd rather it be us than maybe certain other bodies, right? That would make help
Truthfully,
me make
Lisa,
my
I
decision.
think we have an exceptional opportunity to have a voice, and we're actually being asked to do it. And a lot of times we're poking into institutions and providing feedback to them that aren't welcoming or open to that. And HR is actually opening themselves to our critiques and our thoughts and our questions. And I appreciate their willingness to make themselves appropriately vulnerable.
And would this be like a recurring agenda item, or is it like once annually? Like, because we do have limited time, and I just like, if this becomes our entire body of work, like
my
that's a big
understanding is
decision.
that it's an annual event.
That's mine as well.
Yeah, so it could be like 1 to 2 times a year, and then maybe more if there are special cases where it definitely needs more insight from folks like HRAC. But yeah, 1 to 2 times tops a year.
It seems like it would be a fairly impactful legacy for HRAC to take on, because we would have a direct say in what's happening with HR and in their efforts of transparency, towards transparency. Anyone else have thoughts? Questions?
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we involve ourselves in the Title VI program with City of Beaverton. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the shifted. All opposed? Is your hand up, Mercy? Okay, motion carries. It looks unanimous. Any abstentions? Okay.
I will let people know the good news.
No
Thank
abstentions.
you all so much for making the space for this and allowing me to step out of the role of chair and take on the role of commissioner to share my thoughts and perspective on that. Joy, can I pass it on to you to talk about the trespass agreement?
Right, so wasn't that fun last month when the guy from the city attorney came and had shared some things? I am really interested in folks' opinion, especially Cameron. But you don't have to share if you don't want to, of course. What did you think? I'm interested in your feedback before I start.
Trying to figure out how to say this. Well, first off, I know Greg Brown from his time in the prosecutor's office at Washington County. And let's just say it was not a friendly working relationship.
You're not going out for beers with the guys?
I think he got several things incorrect about the trespass agreement. However, if he feels that it is achieving the goals that it sets out to do, and that it is legally welcome to take that position.
So you're breaking up a little. I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
General, but I think that covers the general opinion of that. If anybody
okay
has a specific question to it, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, I did notice at the end of his presentation that you weren't there anymore. I rewatched it today just to make sure that I had it right in my mind. Does anyone else have any thoughts about Greg Brown's presentation? I see Kathy has her hand up. Kathy?
Yeah, and this was not about Greg Brown himself. Okay. Very task-oriented about what seemed to have happened. And we didn't have a chance to ask him questions, and that was unfortunate. But my question was, you know, at the end of our first discussion, when the letter first came to us, I don't remember. It might have even been Paul. It may have been somebody else who said that it came up at this time because of a planned protest. And I have questions about the use of that. And so I was disappointed that we couldn't have face-to-face Zoom questions, that's all.
You're not wrong, Kathy. Anyone else?
So I'm sorry, Joy. I think we still have a lot of unanswered questions. It felt, my impression of it was that it was a lot of information that was given to us in an effort to say everything is fine here and that this is a standard agreement, and to kind of push through that idea without really opening the door for additional questions or for the specific concerns that we had about the letter or the agreement for the city of Beaverton. And so that was my impression of it. And I think it will be something we continue to follow up on and look at, because I'm not okay with a response of pushing information and then saying there's nothing here to see.
Yeah, don't worry your pretty little head about it.
Never seems to work very well for me.
No, does it? Well, yes, Lisa. You're muted, honey.
Sorry about that. Should we bring him back for questioning? Like, should we request he come back specifically for questions?
No.
I think Spencer had some thoughts on that. He wrote a letter.
Yeah, no. He was condescending. I don't know how much to go on the record here. The point, I believe that we should request that the head of the office come, and that we give him enough time to go into every rabbit hole that we think we need to go into. I went out and in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, found a dozen different trespass agreements from different municipalities across the country. They're all like 1 or 2 pages long. There's no indemnification agreement. There's no hold harmless agreement. They are just straight up, I don't know, whatever they are. This thing is, well, I think it's too complicated. It's probably too complicated, but the point I would make is that what my takeaway was that we were snowed under with minutia, and the questions were not answered, in fact, that we had submitted, and or they were hedged around. So I think we should get his boss to come and talk to us.
Before we move on that, did I miss Mercy? Did I miss your hand? Sorry, Mercy in the house.
Yeah, I do agree with what everyone is saying, because before you make an agreement, there must be an agenda. And he made it seems that there's no reason of doing it. It made it seem like it was no reason for doing this, and it was so common. It was nothing behind it. And that was frustrating to me because that's a very big agreement that they came up with. And I was scared because some of us like to have parties and people come to our homes and stuff like that, and we go to people's homes, and now you're making this kind of agreement and you're saying that he made it sound like there's no big deal. But if there's no big deal, why you make the agreement? So I agree with everyone. I think we need to read about it more, understand it more, and come up with what we really need to get out of it.
I think, Kathy?
Yeah, I'm curious about the process of coming to that. Who was involved in the process, the reasons behind it, and so on. That's what.
I could jump in on that. From the previous meeting, prior to the one that oh my gosh, I'm forgetting their name. The attorney came and visited. Y'all had asked for somebody from the attorney's office. I was trying to get Bill Kirby, who is the head, who it sounds like now y'all are asking should come instead. And what we got, what is the person's name? My goodness, I'm forgetting. I'm blanking at the moment. But
Well, the police presented the month before, the one I missed. The police presented, and then we asked for the city attorney.
Right. And so through that, I just went through the hoops of trying to ask somebody from the attorney's office to.
Greg Brown.
Greg Brown, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Greg, if you're watching. But yeah, basically I was just trying to ask for somebody from the attorney's office to come. We couldn't get Bill Kirby, so they sent Greg Brown.
Okay.
Did we have him? Did Spencer make a motion to bring?
He is not.
Kirby?
Not yet. We haven't gotten that far. I was wanting to get everyone's thoughts to make sure we're on the same page, because just because I feel talked down to doesn't mean everyone else does. And I will say that usually in my personal experience, Cameron can verify this, I think, that it usually takes at least a decade for that large of a God complex to soak in. So it's kind of a talent. So it's very gifted in that area.
Well, I'm certainly glad that he came, because I think it opened the door to more questions. And if there's anything that this commission does very well, it's really get to the root or the origin of our concerns. And so I think Greg provided us an excellent opportunity to probe and ask some additional questions. Certainly, a plethora of information is not necessarily better. More is not more, as it sometimes is said, and this gives us an opportunity to ask more specific or targeted questions, so that we can make sure that rights are preserved and that the city is in best practices. Dori.
One thought around getting responses. Would it be helpful to submit a particular set of questions beforehand? And then get written responses, because that is usually something that attorneys are very good at, generating written responses and then having that as a basis for our discussion.
So that's something we did prior as well. Joy actually put together a legal analysis, and then I asked Greg to respond to these pieces. And if y'all have specific questions y'all would like me to ask, if that's the direction we're going in, I'm happy to do so. And I could try harder to get a better push to try to get.
Paolo,
I think, does that put you in a challenging position, Paolo? I mean, it's we civilians who were requesting that this
If you're asking for them to come to an HRAC space, I love y'all, and I'm more than happy to do what I need to do. All I have to do is ask. Worst they can say is no, Paolo. Go back to work.
And I can jump in, because I did also ask the city attorney to provide some answers to your questions, but I have not seen last month's meeting to know the details of what happened. So I did also it wasn't that Paolo asked alone. I also circled back to make sure that there was
He
somebody.
starts at about 1:05, 1 hour and 5 minutes in. Yeah, I did write something. And so I don't know if you want to hear it or if we want to go in a different direction and just invite the big dog to come and talk to us, the head city attorney. What is the pleasure of the group? Do you want to hear what I've written?
I'd like to hear it personally.
Okay. All right. Because it has been suggested that we submit a letter or we have them come back. This is an unresolved issue. So here's what I wrote, and I did vet this. So I was delighted when I heard the city attorney was sending someone to discuss concerns about the trespass agreement. I attended the meeting and took the opportunity to rewatch the presentation posted on the city's website. Let me begin by emphasizing that I am all for helping police make our city safer and to protect our citizens and businesses. Moreover, I agree that trespass agreements are a part of civil society and used in lots of places. My best friend is a bank branch manager, and she signed a trespass agreement on behalf of the bank. The agreement she signed was 2 pages in length on police department letterhead, and for the most part asked for contact information and a description of bank procedures in the event of a trespass occurred. I took the opportunity to research national trends on the use of trespass agreements. They are becoming more common and are generally considered to be of help in local policing. What I noticed, however, is that the agreements are usually short, a lot shorter than the city of Beaverton's trespass agreement. And more importantly, none of these I reviewed had an indemnification clause or a statement regarding no special treatment. The idea of having a trespass agreement is not the issue at hand. The breadth, scope, and further consequences of such agreements are. For example, why is the trespass agreement not on official letterhead? If officers are performing their official duties, why is there a specific blanket indemnification clause? I'm not saying we have bad actors in the police department at this time, but if an officer misuses their authority, the union is likely to prevail on the basis of the indemnification clause. How do we prevent this from happening? Why is this clause necessary? I also find it troubling that the Beaverton Police Department presented these agreements to local businesses in anticipation of a planned Black Lives Matter protest. First, protest is a constitutionally protected right. As presented, the approach appears to chill and perhaps even violate expression of that right. Second, are we to conclude that businesses that sign such agreements are likely to receive greater police protection? Of course, business owners want their property protected. However, one owner might reasonably infer that his or her business is less protected because they choose, for whatever reason, not to sign such an agreement. It sounded that at the time of presentation to businesses prior to the Black Lives Matter protest, that this was the implication. At that point, does the voluntary nature of this process disappear into a sense of coercion? So to summarize, I don't necessarily object to the idea of a trespass agreement, but I do have concerns about such agreements not being shorter and more concise, not being on police department letterhead, and the use of an indemnification clause, the latter of which is simply too broad and does not stand up to close scrutiny. Thank you.
Well, that's certainly a lot more polite than my letter.
Well, it was polite than my original draft as well. The attorney tore it apart and made it something actually nice. So
Spencer, I haven't seen your letter. Have you shared it?
I have not. I'm happy to.
I would be interested in seeing it.
I'll send it to you.
Clearly, we have more probing and more understanding that we need to achieve in this area. And so I think we should consider Dori's suggestion of providing some written questions, and that this is going to need to come up in another agenda item, because obviously there's some strong feelings that we have that we need to address and continue to look at this.
I would hope
Yes.
I would hope that the submission of questions and in writing and they're being answered in writing does in no way imply that we're through. I think we need to have a give and take conversation with the city attorney.
Absolutely. I think we're just looking at what are our next steps. And I'm also conscious as to the time we have remaining. And I know that this is going to be something that is an important agenda item that we're going to need to revisit, because clearly we have not closed the door on it. And I think most of us are in agreement that the information that was provided to us did not address the concerns that the commission possesses. Joy, I know that was a simplification, and I really appreciate you taking the time to create that letter and to look for resources to vet it also.
Okay, so should we get the head city attorney here to have that conversation, Paolo? Can we do that?
Can ask. And it sounds like the president also has been doing some stuff in the background too. So it sounds like is somebody motioning then that that's what we want to have on the next agenda? Try to have Bill Kirby here at the next meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
No, not try.
Do or do not?
Kathy, I think you had a comment also.
Yeah, and that is, you know, it wasn't just the city attorney, it was the police also. So I wonder if we might ask the chief to explain some background on it.
We did try that. And we got, I'm not an attorney.
Yes, but that was not the chief.
Okay, do we need to vote on making that request?
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Got a second.
Tanya, who has the cutest cat in the world?
Right.
Okay. This is on my to-do list.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. Kathy, I would like to move on to you and talk about the letter to council. I need to emphasize that we are crunching on our time. So as streamlined, but as thorough as you can make it, if that's possible. I'm asking two things of you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. And Lisa and Britt also worked on this. And I want to say at this point, it seems old and antique and not needed quite this way anymore. And so I'll just start a little bit. The letter started out reminding the council people that they had passed a resolution denouncing racism, committed to eliminating it, etc., and to improve the lived experiences of all people of color through our actions and leadership. And I've done, I think 3 weeks ago, when Spencer and Joy and I spoke to City Council, one of the members said, you know, on February 16, we passed a resolution to look into this. And then I looked into March 16, Kurt Wilson brought in a big document that very much had the points that we have all wanted in it, but did not read it in the council meeting. And the city council has not referred to that unless they do it in private meetings, which Councilor Hasan can talk about. And then I looked at the, in December of 2020, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan. There's a 2020 update. The report's key highlights, there are so many, so much progress in so many areas of the city, not the city council in policing. The only progress there was that the Community Citizens Academy was renamed. That was it. And so I'm just really frustrated with lack of action. They've had plenty of opportunities. And I wonder if, and that's all. It's not just the letter, which needs to be fixed up a bit, but it really is, what are we going to do about that? And maybe they're doing things that we don't know about. There's talk about oversight. More talk about that. There's the SROs are being looked at. So do we need to do anything? Should we do something?
Well, I honor the work that you and Britt and Lisa have put into this. I think that that's really truthfully been such an important role that HREC has accomplished, is this a continued presence and a continued pressure in some situations for council to continue to look at these issues. And so I think that the letter and the evolution of this letter will be a part of that continued pressure, and it would be a formalized approach to that. Is this something that we need to continue to review, Joy?
Well, I'm thinking from all the feedback that I've gotten, the more of us individually that speak, the more difference it makes, rather than one letter from 12 of us. We're kind of a cacophony, and we all come from different places and different backgrounds. And I think Councilor Hasan can speak to that better. That is it more effective to have one letter from all of us, or 12 people talking?
That I am hopeful that in August we have this scheduled time to talk about the HRAC recommendations. It's August 24th. We asked about it specifically in last night's meeting. And Kathy, just to respond, there's no everything has to be done in a public meeting, so we can't do any public meetings. However, because of sort of general inaction, I've been trying to get just some momentum around what oversight looks like, because I think that could be the first step. Like if we can get to that oversight and say, this is what we need, and then start building that, I think that there's some opportunity there. My concern around oversight is who owns the oversight. I think there's going to be a lot of, we own the oversight. No, we own the oversight. No, we own the oversight. And I'm already prepared for it. And that's why I'm trying to have some conversations to be ready for that. That said, speaking from just what I've been trying to do in my own advocacy, thinking about what you think oversight looks like would be really helpful and important. I'd love to hear that, or love to hear from y'all in a letter to everybody, not me, because there are conflicting beliefs around who owns oversight, and I'll let you all guess what that is. And that the reason I've been so pushy about oversight is because even when we have the oversight conversation, there will not be agreement in what oversight looks like. People will believe that oversight should be owned by A, or oversight should be owned by B, or oversight should be owned by C. And so I'm starting to gear up for what it looks like to have that conversation. So to answer your question, if I were to tell you, I love the public comment. I love hearing from folks who call. I love the emails that I get when I get them. I would also start thinking about if oversight is a way that I think we can achieve what we want, which I believe that it is, we need to start really thinking about what oversight looks like in a way that we all feel excited and hopeful around oversight.
Dori?
Sorry that I keep turning off and on my camera. Everybody's freezing, so I apologize for that action, because I want to be present. I also want to kind of serve as a collective reminder and memory for us that a couple of things have gone on with this police oversight piece. When we did those original conversations last year, we said that we literally don't have enough of a background in oversight, and that we needed to get support from an external source to move towards oversight. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that that conversation. And then I know that in my listening to city council meetings, there has been this voiced opinion that ATRAC was originally formulated to provide police oversight. And I've heard that at least 3 times in the meeting. So I'm just trying to highlight those 2 things and see if, Paolo has the longest history, I think, of any of us with ATRAC, just to talk about those 2 elements that have come up.
Paolo, do you want to add anything to that?
I don't have anything to add, no, but I do know that before ATRAC, or before I came along in ATRAC, that the chief used to be what was called an ex officio member of the commission. I don't actually know what ex officio means, so if somebody here knows what that means, you could let me know. And then they were taken off, and I'm not really sure why that was, but it was done so, and I believe the bylaws update like 2 years ago. So it is definitely something that could be explored. And then what does that relationship look like with the chief and the police department?
Councilor Hasan is telling us it's a non-voting member. Spencer, did you have an?
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I'll try and be brief. I was, when I've looked at oversight before the report was issued, I was kind of overwhelmed by it. There's this enormous range choices in the United States. Every community that has it, it looks a little different. On the one end it's basically advisory only, and on the other end, there are actual citizen oversight boards that have the ability to discipline, if not outright dismiss police officers. So there's this huge range. And in terms of who owns it, I mean, that's, I guess, I don't know. Well, obviously I don't know. I'm not quite sure what that means, I guess is what I wanted to say. So in my head, what I've imagined is that the city council would pass a resolution to establish an oversight board and set up a process by which X number of people would come together on an appointed committee to, they're representing different communities within the city, and they would come up with what makes the most sense for the city of Beaverton. Also, and I'll stop after this, the single most universal objector to any kind of citizen oversight are the police unions. And there are agreements within the contract that, I don't know, I'm no lawyer reading contracts like labor contracts, but it could be outright forbidden under the current collective bargaining agreement. So there are hurdles, but it's the one thing that I agree that hopefully will get really looked at hard and instituted.
Thank you, Kathy, and then Joy, and please keep in mind that we are significantly over time.
Yeah. I'm just going to say 2 things. One is one of the council people, and it sounds like he has talked to everybody, so maybe everybody's talked about this, keeps talking about hiring somebody to do that analysis that we have wanted to be done. And another thing is that if the council is meeting on the 24th to really look at recommendations, then of course the letter should be held back and to see if they have a response to that. At least I think it should be held back. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation, Joy.
And I greatly appreciate the concept and the police oversight, but I believe the question was, when is the city council going to bring up and adopt the 4 recommendations we already made? They can't even read them into the record. I know you tried, Councilor Hasan, and you were shut down. So how about that question?
Okay, and another part of this that we want to make sure, I think is an important aspect of this that council needs to recall is that this was done in conjunction with the police department. All of our work last year was done in conjunction with the police department. And, as we're addressing council, to ignore these recommendations is also to ignore the participation of the police department as well. So it isn't only our lone body, but it has also been the participation and the hard work of the Beaverton Police Department.
Can I offer one potential thought to Joy's sort of question? Maybe different members from HRAC can put together their own email around what they want to see, or pick one or pick 2, and then also include the recommendations in the email just as a reminder. And I think it would be good for us to be prepared for it on the 24th. I'll be super honest with you all. I believe that is the night that we are doing Bureau, and that is also the night that we're doing ARPA. But I am torn between saying to push it back, which I'm not okay with, or trying to get it done in what will feel like 30 minutes. So I only brought up oversight because it feels like the win that we can have. I know that there's much more to it than that, but if you would like to send a joint letter, please send a joint letter. If you want to email us individually, please email us individually. If you want to do both, please do both. If you want to call in, I love hearing your voices.
Thank you so much. And special thanks to Kathy, Lisa, and Brett on all of your efforts around this. We really honor your work on that and keeping this in the forefront. Let's move on to community safety work. And Dori and Brett, you've done some significant work on that, and that's an exciting project that's such a positive.
I'm just going to say thank you to the team of folks that have been working together. Lisa, Sabde, Britt, Kathy. Kathy went to the Art Commission and informed them because they are folks that work with the arts. And I got an excited email back about the potential nature of the project. I just sent this week to y'all, and it should be in your email. I think I did it yesterday. The drawing from the artist that we've now engaged with. And so I put a call out to the folks that are on the committee to take a look at that, including the police officers that are engaged with us and the chief. And basically, to give an overview, I don't want to take up the time to show the sketch because I'd have to find it and we're at 8:20, but I can kind of describe it. So it's basically a 2-sided booth that you can see through that takes the idea of a forest and the understory. And taking this idea of understory, when you look at a forest, the understory is all that's below the canopy, right? And it's the most diverse ecological species that live in the understory. Thank you, Paula. And so if you look at the sketch, it's where the mushrooms and the trillium are. And you can see that in the sketch, people would be able to see through both sides of it. There'd be a QR code explaining that concept of understory and us also wanting to lift up the understories of folks in the community. And then these other spaces, the ones that are below the QR code, would be used for displaying people's work. So I sent, as I said, I sent a note to the folks from ATRAC that are on the committee to kind of give feedback on, in particular, what else would you want besides this piece? If there's a table, if there's other elements that we want to include. The nice part about the artist's work is that it would be usable year after year with any kind of questions or queries that the group would want to have. She's going to build it out of pretty sturdy materials. So that would be my update. I know Paolo is going to reach out to everybody and we're going to set up a meeting time, and we'll also be reaching out to you. And Lisa, thank you for starting last time with a sign-up sheet. But we'll be reaching out to you all once we settle on events. And I know Sabdi's working on that. And then we'll be able to get going. So hopefully have a couple times in August, maybe a couple times in September when we can go out with the display.
I just want to say one key piece there. We have an artist.
Yes, we have an artist. Yes, we have an artist.
This is so exciting. And I've said this before, but I want to reiterate how important it is that ATRAC is involved in a creation and community outreach piece. So much of our time is spent on oversight, but this outreach to the community adds an indescribably important aspect of ATRAC's mission to really connecting with the community. And I think quite frankly, even underscores our voice in oversight because we have that connection to the community and that the richness of that, and it gives us credibility. So thank you for all of your work on that, Lisa, Britt, Dori.
Dori's such a natural organizer. She's just amazing. It's impressive.
Yes. We're very, very fortunate to have all of you here. Thank you so much. Joy, did you want to touch base on, first of all, I really don't want to gloss over this because I think it's such a significant part. And I think next time we really need to move this up on the agenda so that it doesn't get curtailed. Were there other comments or questions that anyone had? I don't want to cut that off prematurely. You're just all as excited about it as I am. Well, great. Glad to see it. Joy, did you want to give us an update on lobbying council? I think we've covered some of it already.
I think we have. Let me encourage people, if you haven't spoken before council, please do. If you're going to, it'd be awesome if you could send me a text or an email to let me know you're going to speak. And just so that I know, so that the more of us that speak, the better. We each have our own light. We each have our own perspective, and it takes a lot of perspective to get a good picture, and that's what good government's about. So please volunteer to speak. It's totally easy.
It's a very low time commitment, and as Joy has said, it really is the diversity of our voices that makes the impact. So thank you for continuing that and for continuing to organize that. I want to move on to talking about Laurel, and Paolo, I will let you take that away.
Yeah, sure. And before we get there, I just want to say too that Councilor Hasan did share that, yeah, on the 24th, they're going to be having a much deeper conversation about the recommendations that y'all made. So it is a good opportunity while it's fresh in their heads, to talk, maybe go before council and talk about it. And I will say too, Joy has been holding it down very, very well, and going to HRAC quite a bit. And I'll also echo, I think last month we saw Tanya as well, Spencer, we saw Kathy, and when all three of you at one point showed up, council, my phone was blowing up, like, holy cow, HRAC is killing it. They're bringing the heat today. So council's paying attention, y'all, and please do show up. So this next piece, I'm actually pretty sad about this. You know, I'm a pretty happy smiley guy, and I'm really sad when I got a text message from Laurel saying that Laurel will no longer be with us, but for great reason. Laurel and family are moving, and I think you have like a farm or something.
I had a farm.
So excited
Moving to a farm.
And all that you're doing. Something I just want to say is I think Dori made a comment earlier that you know how long I've been around HRAC, and I think that's been around the same time that Laurel has been around HRAC. I believe we started literally around the same time, and you know, a big part of my work, at least what I really value in my work, put up top, is the work I do with HRAC. And Laurel, in that sense, I would say that we grew together quite a bit. And, you know, I don't think I need to speak to the great work that you do and how much you bring to this commission. I think your words and your actions and the love you give have spoken for themselves. But I will say one thing outside of HRAC is, I was thinking about this actually earlier. I was like, man, I really wish I met you when I was in high school. You're funny, you're smart, you get past of all of our snarky like things that sometimes students say, and you know, you throw it right back at us, and you do it unapologetically. And I feel like that's the kind of guidance that I probably needed back in the day. Regardless, I'm so stoked that I got to meet you here in this space. I really hope you're not going to be a stranger. I really hope that, you know, HRAC sees you more, and also everywhere else at the city. I think wherever you are at the city, we win. So congrats on the farm, but don't be a stranger. We want to see you again.
I'm really looking forward to being a thorn in the side of the Newburgh School District soon. So.
Oh, very good, very good. With that, I do want to open it up for others too. If you have anything to share.
I want to say thank you to Laurel because, you know, from the time Laurel came onto the commission, and wow, we've had some interesting reactions, but it has been her voice as an educator that has resonated so profoundly with me, that she has this amazing ability to provide content and education around what she is speaking about. And so she manages to do that without coming across as pedantic. And I don't know quite how she provides that education and that guidance where it all feels like enlightenment, and it doesn't feel like you've been, you know, beaten over the head with more information or put in a box. And that has been such a gift, and such a gift for our commission last year. Her guidance and her leadership during what was probably the most challenging time for HRAC, and doing some really difficult and deep and deeply emotional as well as deeply effective work. And I'm so grateful for the time that Laurel has provided to this commission. I think I know I personally am better for having had the opportunity to work with you, Laurel. And I know that the city is infinitely better and forever changed because of your time with us.
I'm really like, I had this thought that I was like gonna say something like really profound to like sign off, and I didn't have anything. But coming into this meeting, I was really thinking about like I can't believe that like this feels very surreal. Like I was not anticipating. This was not in my, we're making a huge change as a family, and I'm like haven't really wrapped my head around it. But I was just thinking like, this has been, I'm so I can't believe how much I've learned from everyone on this commission, and I'm really, really thankful to all of you, and I'm gonna miss you all very much. And we have to find ways to spend time together. And when Paolo, I'm gonna try to extract a promise from you, which is that we need to have some sort of like reunion get together when it's safe to do so, where we can eat some food, because I really like Paolo and the providing of the bomb food. It's like just so oh yeah, hugely grateful to everybody, and really, really am very excited about bringing my firecracker spirit to a new community. Unincorporated Clackamas County doesn't know what's coming for it, and I really do hope you'll all come to our farm. We will not have any farm animals right away, so give us some time. But
what happened to Pinky? We just heard about Pinky.
Well, Rory's really sure we're gonna get Pinky right away, but like the barn isn't structurally stable, so we're not ready for Pinky.
Well, thank you for all of your work, and we send you off with our warmest and really deepest appreciation. And we know that this is not a goodbye, but it certainly is an addition. So I think this is an and for you. And now you will impact and have an opportunity to work with yet another community. And so we'll say thank you for impacting this one, and we look forward to seeing the impact you make in this new community. So thank you all. I know we are slightly over time, but we covered a lot. So thank you all for your efforts. I appreciate your time today. I look forward to seeing everybody next month.
All right, bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Good to see everybody.